Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars drift past on the main screen. The ship UES Horizon had been traveling through deep space for 3 months now. Jake had been a space captain for 15 years, but this mission felt different. They were exploring places no human had ever been before. "Captain, we're approaching the Kepler 442 system," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes that still held wonder at the vastness of space. "Should I begin the standard scans?" "Yes, do it," Jake replied. He stretched in his chair. Another day, another star system to check. Most of the time they found nothing but empty planets and cold rocks, but that was the job. Someone had to look. Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her science station. She was the ship's expert on alien life, though they hadn't found any yet. "Captain, I'm getting some strange readings from the 4th planet." Jake turned to her. Lisa was always careful with her words. If she said something was strange, it usually meant trouble. "What kind of strange?" "There are structures on the surface. They look artificial. Made by someone, not natural." Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. The patterns match human colonial designs from about 200 years ago. Commander Ryan Burke, Jake's second-in-command, walked over to Lisa's station. Ryan was a big man with dark skin and a serious face. He had fought in the border wars and didn't trust anything that seemed too good to be true. "That's impossible. No human ships came out this far back then. Our records show nothing." Jake stood up and walked to the main screen. "Show me what you've got, Lisa." The screen changed to show a blue and green planet. It looked almost like Earth, with white clouds and deep oceans. But there, on one of the larger continents, were clear signs of buildings and roads. The structures formed neat patterns that could only mean one thing. Someone built a city down there. Amy whispered. Lisa nodded. "Not just a city. My scans show multiple settlements. And Captain, there are life signs. Lots of them, maybe 50,000 or more." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. In all his years of exploration, they had never found another human colony. "This far out, are you sure they're human? The life signs match human patterns." "But there's something else." Lisa looked worried. "The energy readings are incredible. They're producing power levels that our best technology can't match. It doesn't make sense." Ryan crossed his arms. "This smells like a trap. Maybe it's not humans at all. Maybe something is trying to trick us. Or maybe," Amy said quietly, "they found something down there, something that changed everything." Jake stared at the planet. As a captain, he was supposed to follow rules. When they found something unusual, they were supposed to report back to Earth Command and wait for orders. That could take months, but those life signs were human. If there were people down there, they might need help. "Lisa, can you get more detailed scans?" Jake asked. Lisa worked at her station for several minutes. The results made everyone go quiet. "Captain, this is very strange. The people down there are moving in patterns. Not random like normal people do. They move together, like they're following the same plan. Maybe they're having some kind of ceremony," Amy suggested. "For 3 days straight," Lisa shook her head. "I've been watching them since we arrived. They never seem to rest. They just keep moving in these organized groups." Ryan didn't like it. "Captain, I recommend we keep our distance. Send a message to Earth Command and wait for backup." But Jake was thinking about something else. If these were humans, they might be in trouble. What if they were being controlled by something? What if they needed rescue? He couldn't just leave without knowing. "Amy, try to contact them," Jake ordered. Amy worked at her communication station. After a few minutes, she looked up with a confused expression. "Captain, I'm getting a response. But it's strange. The signal is coming from all over the planet at the same time. Like everyone down there is talking together." "Put it on speaker." A voice filled the bridge. It sounded human, friendly even. "Welcome, travelers from Earth. We have been waiting for you. Please come down to the surface. We have so much to show you." The voice was clear and spoke perfect English, but there was something about it that made Jake's skin crawl. It sounded too perfect, like someone reading from a script. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Command Ship Horizon. Please identify yourselves. We are the children of the colony ship New Horizons. Our ancestors came here long ago and found something wonderful. We would like to share it with you." Jake looked at Ryan, who was checking his data pad. Ryan's face went pale. "Captain, the New Horizons left Earth in 2203. It was carrying 10,000 colonists to a planet in the Alpha Centauri system. The ship disappeared without a trace." "That was almost 200 years ago," Lisa whispered. The voice came again, still friendly but somehow urgent. "Please, Captain Morrison, come down to the surface. We have been alone for so long. We need to talk to other humans." Jake made his decision. "Amy, tell them we'll send down a small team." "Captain," Ryan started to protest. "I know the risks." "Ryan, but if those are really humans down there, we can't just leave them. Prepare a landing team. You, me, Lisa, and Tony Martinez from engineering." Tony Martinez was a quiet man who could fix anything if there was strange technology involved. They would need him as they prepared to leave the ship. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were making a mistake, but the voice had sounded so human, so desperate. How could he turn his back on 50,000 people? The planet grew larger on the screen as they approached in their shuttle. Soon they would have answers. Jake just hoped those answers wouldn't get them all killed. The shuttle touched down on a flat area just outside the main settlement. Jake looked out the window and saw neat rows of white buildings stretching into the distance. Everything looked perfect to perfect. The streets were clean. The buildings were in perfect condition, and not a single thing seemed out of place. "This doesn't look like a colony that's been here for 200 years, Tony Martinez said as he checked his equipment. Tony was a man of few words, but when he spoke, people listened. "These buildings look like they were built yesterday." Ryan had his weapon ready. "Stay alert. Everyone, something's not right here." They opened the shuttle door and stepped outside. The air was warm and sweet, with a gentle breeze that felt almost too comfortable. Jake noticed that the shadows seemed wrong somehow, but he couldn't figure out why. A group of people walked toward them from the settlement. They all wore simple white clothes and had bright smiles on their faces. They moved together in a way that reminded Jake of dancers following the same music. "Welcome to our home," said a woman who seemed to be their leader. She had long brown hair and kind eyes. "I am Helen Davis. We are so happy to see other humans again." Jake stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. This is my team. We received your message." "Yes, of course. We have been waiting so long for visitors from Earth." Helen's smile never changed. "Please, let us show you our community. You must be tired from your long journey." As they walked through the settlement, Jake noticed more strange things. The colonists they passed all looked healthy and young. Nobody seemed older than 40. Even though this colony had supposedly been here for generations, children played in the streets. But they played the same games in exactly the same way. "How many people live here?" Lisa asked, taking notes on her data pad. 53,000. 412, Helen answered immediately. "We keep very careful records." The number was too exact, too quick. Most colony leaders would give a rough estimate, not a precise count down to the last person. They passed a school where children sat in perfect rows, all writing the same words at the same time. A market where vendors all smiled the same smile and spoke in the same cheerful tone. Workers in fields who moved their tools in identical patterns. "Everyone seems very organized," Ryan observed, his hands staying close to his weapon. "We learned long ago that working together makes everything better," Helen explained. "Our ancestors discovered the secret to perfect cooperation." Tony was studying the buildings with his scanner. "Captain, these structures are using some kind of technology I don't recognize. The power sources are incredibly advanced, way beyond anything we have on Earth." Helen heard him and nodded. "Yes, we have learned many wonderful things since our ancestors arrived. Would you like to see how we live?" She led them to a large building in the center of the settlement. Inside, people sat in circles, their eyes closed, all breathing at exactly the same rate. They seemed to be in some kind of meditation, but it felt different from anything Jake had seen before. "They are sharing knowledge," Helen explained. "When one of us learns something, we all learn it. When one of us feels joy, we all feel joy. We are truly united. Lisa was scanning the people with her medical equipment. Her face showed confusion and worry. "Captain, I need to speak with you privately." Jake nodded to Helen. "Excuse us for a moment." They stepped outside the building. Lisa's hands were shaking as she looked at her scanner readings. "Captain, something is very wrong here. These people register as human, but their brain patterns are unlike anything I've ever seen. They're all synchronized. Every single person I've scanned has identical neural activity." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "It means they're not thinking individual thoughts. It's like they're all connected to the same mind." Ryan joined them. "I've been watching them carefully. They don't cast shadows properly. Look at the ground around them. The shadows are there, but they're fuzzy, like they're not quite real." Jake looked back at the building. Through the windows, he could see the people still sitting in their circles, breathing together, thinking together. "Tony, what's your equipment telling you?" Tony was frowning at his readings. "The power signatures are off the charts. There's some kind of energy field covering this entire area. And Captain, it's not coming from the buildings. It's coming from underground, deep underground." Helen appeared beside them, still wearing her perfect smile. "Is everything all right? You seem concerned." "We're just curious about your technology," Jake said carefully. "How did your ancestors develop such advanced systems?" "They found help," Helen said simply. "Something wonderful was waiting for them here. Something that wanted to make their lives better." "What kind of something?" Lisa asked. Helen's smile grew wider. "Would you like to see?" "It would be easier to show you than to explain." Jake looked at his team. They were all thinking the same thing. This was getting dangerous, but they needed answers. If there was some kind of alien technology here, Earth Command needed to know about it. "All right," Jake said. "Show us." Helen clapped her hands together. Immediately, all the colonists in the area stopped what they were doing and looked toward them. They all had the same expression, the same angle to their heads, the same curious smile. "They're excited to meet you," Helen said. "We don't often have visitors." As they walked deeper into the settlement, Jake noticed that their shuttle's communication system had gone quiet. When he tried to contact the ship, he got only static. "Amy should be responding," he told Ryan quietly. "The field Tony mentioned might be blocking our signals," Ryan whispered back. They passed more buildings, more people, more of the same perfect organization. A group of musicians playing identical melodies, artists painting identical pictures, workers building identical structures. "How long have you been living like this?" Jake asked Helen. "Since our ancestors made contact," she replied. "Time doesn't matter much when everyone is truly happy." They reached the edge of the settlement, where a large metal structure rose from the ground. It looked like some kind of elevator or lift system. "This will take us down," Helen said. "Down to where it all began. Down to where we found the gift that changed everything." Jake felt a chill run through him. Whatever was down there had done something to these people, changed them, made them into something that looked human, but wasn't quite human anymore. "Captain," Lisa whispered, "I don't think we should go down there." But before Jake could respond, more colonists appeared around them, dozens of them, all with the same smile, all looking at the visitors with the same curious expression. "Please," Helen said, and her voice seemed to come from all the colonists at once. "We have so much to share with you, so much to show you. Come and see what we have become." Jake realized they might not have a choice anymore. The elevator was bigger than Jake expected. It could easily hold 50 people, but it felt crowded with just the 4 crew members and Helen. The walls were made of the same white metal as the buildings above, but they hummed with energy that made Jake's teeth ache. "How deep does this go?" Tony asked, watching the numbers on the display screen climb higher and higher. "Deep enough," Helen replied. "Our ancestors had to dig far to reach what was waiting below." They had been descending for 10 minutes when Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. "Captain, look at this." She showed him her scanner. "We're 3 miles underground now, but the temperature is getting warmer, not cooler. And there's something else. The air down here has particles I don't recognize." Ryan was studying Helen carefully. In the elevator's bright light, he could see that her skin had a slight shimmer to it, like there were tiny crystals just under the surface. "Helen, how old are you?" "Age doesn't matter anymore," she said with that same perfect smile. We stopped. Counting years long ago, the elevator finally stopped. The doors opened to reveal a sight that made all four crew members step back in shock. They were standing at the edge of a vast underground cavern that stretched as far as they could see. The walls, the ceiling, even the floor were covered with crystals that glowed with soft blue light. But these weren't ordinary crystals. They moved and shifted, growing and changing shape as Jake watched. Some were as small as his fist. Others were taller than buildings. They formed patterns that hurt to look at directly, like his eyes couldn't quite focus on them properly. Beautiful, isn't it? Helen said. This is where our ancestors first made contact. Contact with what? Jake asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. With our partners, the ones who taught us how to live together in perfect harmony. Lisa was holding her scanner with shaking hands. Captain, these crystals are alive. They're not just minerals. They're some kind of living organism. As they walked deeper into the cavern, Jake noticed that the crystals seemed to pulse in rhythm with their heartbeats. The blue light grew brighter as they approached, and he could swear he heard something, like music coming from them. The first colonists were afraid at first. Helen explained as they walked along a path between the crystal formations. They thought the crystals were dangerous, but then they realized the crystals were trying to communicate. Tony was taking readings with his equipment. The energy output here is incredible. These crystals are producing more power than our ship's reactor. They don't just produce power, Helen said. They create connection. They showed us how to share our thoughts, our feelings, our very souls. They reached the center of the cavern, where a massive crystal formation rose from the floor like a tree made of living light. It was easily 100 feet tall and 50 feet wide. Inside it, Jake could see shapes moving, shadows that looked almost human. What is that? Ryan asked, his hand on his weapon. That is the heart, Helen said. The center of our new family, the place where all minds meet. Lisa was staring at her scanner in disbelief. Captain, the readings I'm getting from that central crystal are impossible. It's showing signs of intelligence that are off any scale I know. This thing is more complex than a human brain. Much more complex. Suddenly, the crystal began to glow brighter. The music Jake had been hearing grew louder, and he realized it wasn't music at all. It was voices. Thousands of voices speaking in harmony. Welcome, the voices said, and Jake felt the words inside his head rather than hearing them with his ears. We have been waiting for more of your kind. Jake stepped back, but Helen put a gentle hand on his arm. Don't be afraid. They want to help us. They want to help all humans. What are they? Lisa whispered. The crystal pulsed, and images filled Jake's mind. He saw a civilization older than Earth itself. Beings of pure thought and energy who had traveled between the stars for millions of years. They had watched countless species rise and fall, always searching for the right partners. We are gardeners, the voices explained. We help young species grow beyond their limitations. We offer gifts of knowledge, power, and unity. What do you want in return? Ryan asked, though his voice sounded strange, like it was echoing from far away. Only partnership. We exist in dimensions your minds cannot fully understand. To experience your physical reality, we need vessels. We need willing hosts. Jake felt his mind clearing as he understood what was happening. The colonists. You're inside them. We are joined with them. The voices corrected. They gave us their bodies, and we gave them immortality, perfect health, and unity of purpose. No more loneliness. No more pain. No more death. Helen turned to face them, and in the crystal light, Jake could see that her eyes were glowing with the same blue light as the formations around them. The original colonists fought the joining at first. They were scared of losing themselves, but they came to understand that individuality is just another form of suffering. Lisa backed away from Helen. Where are the real colonists, the original people? We are the real colonists, Helen said, but her voice was different now. Multiple voices speaking as one. We are what they became when they accepted the gift of unity. Tony was studying his readings frantically. Captain, I'm detecting organic matter inside these crystals, lots of it. I think the original colonists might be physically integrated into the crystal structure. The truth hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. The colonists hadn't just made a deal with these beings. They had been absorbed by them. Their bodies were being used as puppets while their consciousness had been added to the alien. Collective. How many other species have you done this to? Jake asked. The crystal pulsed again, and Jake saw images of dozens of different alien civilizations. All had been offered the same gift. All had eventually accepted. All had become part of the growing collective consciousness. We offer the same gift to your species, the voices said. Join us willingly, and we will come to Earth in peace. Refuse, and we will find other ways to reach your people. Ryan had his weapon out now. You're threatening. US, we are offering you a choice, Helen said, stepping toward them. But understand that this choice will be offered to all humans eventually. We have learned patience over the millennia. We can wait for your species to see the wisdom of unity. Jake realized they were in terrible danger, not just his crew, but all of humanity. If these beings reached Earth, they would offer the same gift to billions of humans, and eventually, some would accept. Once they had a foothold, they could grow stronger, influence more people, until all of humanity became part of their collective. We need to think about this, Jake said. Trying to buy time, of course, Helen replied. But do not take too long. Our patience has limits, and we grow stronger every day. Soon we will not need your permission to visit your home world. As they rode the elevator back to the surface, Jake caught Lisa's eye. She nodded slightly. She understood. They couldn't let these beings reach Earth, whatever it took. They had to stop them. But how do you fight an enemy that has already consumed 50,000 humans and turned them into willing servants? How do you defeat beings that exist partially, outside normal reality? Jake didn't know the answer yet, but he knew they had to try. Back on the surface, Helen led them to a large building at the center of the settlement. Inside, hundreds of colonists sat in perfect circles, their eyes closed, all breathing together. The blue glow from underground seemed to shine through their skin. This is where we make our most important decisions, Helen explained. Every choice is made together, by all of us at once. Jake watched the colonists carefully. They looked peaceful, almost happy, but there was something empty about their faces, like they were sleeping even though their eyes were open. You said we have a choice, Jake said. What exactly are you offering? Helen smiled and gestured for them to sit. Join us. Captain Morrison. Become part of something greater than yourself. No more loneliness, no more doubt, no more fear of death. The crystal light in the room grew brighter, and suddenly Jake could see visions in his mind. He saw Earth transformed into a paradise. No more wars, no more hunger, no more disease. Every human connected to every other human, sharing knowledge and happiness. We could solve all your problems, Helen continued. Cancer, poverty, hatred, all the things that make humans suffer. We have the power to fix everything. Lisa was fighting against the visions. What about free will? What about the right to make our own choices? Free will is an illusion that causes pain, Helen replied. When everyone thinks together, there is no conflict, no misunderstanding, no loneliness. Tony was studying his scanner readings. Captain, the energy field around us is getting stronger. I think they're trying to influence our minds. Ryan stepped closer to Jake. Sir, we need to get out of here. This is some kind of mind control. But Helen heard him. There's no control, only unity. Watch, and you will understand. She gestured to the colonists around them. Suddenly, they all opened their eyes at the same moment and looked directly at the crew. When they spoke, it was with one voice. We were like you once, afraid, alone, fighting against each other. But now we are complete. We know everything our neighbors know. We feel everything they feel. We are never alone. Jake felt the pull of their words. Part of him wanted to believe it could be that simple. No more difficult decisions. No more worry about making mistakes. Just peace and unity. But then he remembered something. Helen, what happened to the people who refused? The colonists who didn't want to join? For the first time, Helen's smile flickered. Everyone joined eventually. Some took longer than others. But they all came to see the wisdom of unity. That's not an answer, Ryan said firmly. What happened to the ones who said no? The colonists around them shifted uncomfortably. Through their shared connection, Jake could sense something like guilt or sadness. There were some who resisted for many years, Helen admitted. They hid in the mountains, tried to build their own settlements, but they were so alone, so afraid. Eventually, they came to us asking for help. Lisa was scanning the colonists with her medical equipment. Captain, I'm detecting stress markers in their bioreadings. Even with their minds connected, part of them remembers being individual people. Show us. Jake demanded. Show us what really happened to the resistors. Helen hesitated, then nodded. The crystal light flowed through the room, and new visions filled their minds. Jake saw groups of colonists fleeing into the wilderness, trying to build hidden camps. He saw them growing sick without access to the advanced medical technology. He saw them slowly starving as the connected colonists controlled all the food production. But he also saw something else, records hidden in old computers, desperate messages left by people who knew they were going to die. The real Helen Davis had been one of the resistors. She had fought against the alien influence for 30 years before finally giving up. The entity doesn't just offer partnership, Jake realized. It slowly takes over everything. It made life impossible for anyone who refused to join. We offered them paradise, and they chose suffering, the colonists said in unison. In the end, they begged us to take away their pain. Tony had been quietly working with his equipment. Now he looked up at Jake with urgent eyes. Captain, I've been analyzing the energy patterns. This entity isn't just controlling the colonists. It's been sending signals into space. Long-range communications. What kind of signals? Jake asked. Distress calls, false messages claiming to be from lost human ships. It's been trying to lure more humans here for decades. Helen's expression didn't change, but the other colonists began to look uncomfortable. We have been lonely, she said simply. We wanted more humans to share our joy. Ryan stepped forward. How many ships have you lured here? 17 over the past century, Helen replied. Their crews joined us willingly once they understood the benefits. Jake felt sick. 17 ships full of people, all absorbed into this alien collective, all used as bait to lure more victims. But that's not the worst part, Tony continued. The signals aren't just going to human space. They're reaching out to other species too. This thing has been calling to every intelligent race it can find. Lisa was studying her readings more carefully. Captain, look at this. The entity's power has been growing. Each time it absorbs a new group, it gets stronger. If it reaches Earth. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Jake could imagine what would happen. The entity would offer its gift to Earth's billions of people. Some would refuse, but others would accept. And once it had a foothold on Earth, it would slowly convert everyone else, just like it had done here. You're afraid, Helen observed. But fear is just another form of suffering we can take away. What about creativity? Jake asked suddenly. What about art, music, literature? What about the things that make us human? Helen gestured to the walls, where beautiful paintings hung in perfect rows. We create wonderful things together. See how perfect they are. But Jake noticed that every painting was identical. Every sculpture was the same. The entity could copy human creativity, but it couldn't truly create anything new. You're not creating, he said. You're just copying the same thing over and over. Perfection doesn't need change, Helen replied. That's when Jake understood the real horror of what they were facing. The entity didn't want to destroy humanity. It wanted to preserve them forever, like insects trapped in amber. All the creativity, all the growth, all the wonderful chaos of human nature would be frozen in place. We refuse, Jake said firmly. The colonists all turned to look at him. Their eyes began to glow brighter with blue light. That is unfortunate, they said in perfect unison. But we are patient. We will keep asking until you say yes. The crystal light in the room began to pulse faster. Jake felt pressure building in his head, like something trying to push its way inside his thoughts. Tony, can you get us out of here? He asked quietly. Tony nodded and pulled a small device from his belt. I've been working on something that might disrupt their energy field, but it's only good for a few minutes. Do it, Jake ordered. Tony activated the device. Immediately, the crystal light flickered and dimmed. The colonists stumbled, looking confused and lost without their connection. Run, Jake shouted. They raced toward the exit, but already the colonists were recovering. Their eyes began to glow again. and they moved to block the doors. "You cannot leave," Helen said, but now her voice sounded desperate. "You must stay and become part of us. We need you." Jake realized the truth. The entity wasn't offering them a choice at all. It was planning to keep them here until they gave in. Just like it had done with all the others, they were prisoners now, and their only hope was to find a way to destroy something that had been growing stronger for 200 years. Jake and his team ran through the settlement as fast as they could. Behind them, hundreds of colonists followed in perfect formation, their eyes glowing blue in the dim light. The entity had dropped all pretense of being friendly now. "The shuttle is 2 miles away," Ryan shouted as they ran. "We'll never make it on foot." Tony's device was still working, but barely. The crystal light around them kept trying to return, and Jake could feel pressure building in his head again. The entity was fighting back, trying to force its way into their minds. "There," Lisa pointed to a small building ahead. "We can hide in there and plan our next move." They burst through the door and found themselves in what looked like a storage facility. Old equipment and supplies were stacked everywhere. Tony immediately went to work reinforcing his device with spare parts. "How long can you keep that thing running?" Jake asked. "Maybe an hour," Tony replied, sweat dripping down his face. "But Captain, I've been thinking, the entity's power comes from those crystals underground. If we could somehow overload the main crystal, it might disrupt the whole system." Ryan was watching through the window. "The colonists are surrounding the building. We're trapped." Jake looked around the storage room and had an idea. "Tony, what would happen if we fed the ship's fusion reactor directly into the crystal network?" Tony stopped working and stared at him. "That would create a massive energy overload. It might cause an explosion big enough to destroy this entire area. But would it destroy the entity? Maybe. But Captain, we'd have to get back to the ship first. And even if we did, we probably wouldn't survive the explosion." Lisa was studying her scanner readings. "There's something else. I've been analyzing the colonists' biosignatures. The original people are still in there somewhere, buried deep inside the crystal network. If we destroy the entity, we might be able to free them. Or we might kill them," Ryan said grimly. Jake thought about the 50,000 people who had been trapped for 2 centuries, their bodies used as puppets, while their minds were absorbed into an alien collective. They're already dead in every way that matters. At least this way, they might have a chance. Outside, the colonists had stopped moving. They stood in perfect silence, waiting. "They're not trying to break in," Ryan observed. "Why?" "Because they don't want to damage us." Jake realized they need us intact so they can absorb us into their collective. "They'll wait as long as it takes." Tony finished his work on the device. "I've managed to boost the signal. This should give us maybe 30 minutes of protection from their mind control." "That's not enough time to reach the ship," Lisa said. Jake made a decision that he knew might get them all killed. "We're not going to the ship. We're going back." Underground, his team stared at him in shock. "Captain, that's suicide," Ryan protested. "Maybe, but it's also the last thing they'll expect." "Tony, can you rig an explosive powerful enough to damage the main crystal?" Tony nodded slowly. "I have some plasma charges in my kit. If I can get close enough to the central formation, I might be able to create a chain reaction." "What about the rest of us?" Lisa asked. "We'll be the distraction. While Tony plants the charges, we'll keep the entity's attention focused on us." They waited until the colonists seemed to relax their guard, then quietly slipped out the back of the building. Moving carefully through the shadows, they made their way to the elevator entrance. To Jake's surprise, the elevator was unguarded. "They really don't expect us to go back down there," he whispered. The ride down felt longer this time. Jake knew they were probably going to die, but he also knew they couldn't let the entity reach Earth. 50,000 people had already been lost to this thing. He wouldn't let it claim billions more. The crystal cavern was even brighter than before. The entity sensed their presence immediately. "You have returned," the voices said inside their heads. "Good. We were beginning to worry that we might have to take you by force." "We want to make a deal," Jake said loudly, hoping to draw the entity's attention away from Tony, who was quietly moving toward the central crystal. "What kind of deal?" Helen appeared from behind one of the larger crystal formations. Her skin was completely transparent now, revealing the blue light flowing through her veins. "Let our ship go. Let them warn Earth about what's here. In exchange, we'll stay and join your collective willingly." The entity was interested. Jake could feel its alien thoughts pressing against his mind, trying to determine if he was telling the truth. "You would sacrifice yourselves to save your species." "Yes," Jake lied. "But only if you promise to leave Earth alone." "We cannot promise that. Your species needs our guidance, but we appreciate your offer." Behind the central crystal, Tony was setting up his charges. He caught Jake's eye and held up 5 fingers. 5 minutes until detonation. "You don't understand," Jake continued, trying to keep the entity talking. "Humans won't accept your gift willingly. We're too stubborn, too independent. You'll have to fight for every single person." "We have time," Helen replied. "We are patient, but you don't have forever," Lisa jumped in. "Your crystal network is unstable. I can see it in my readings. Each time you absorb a new species, the system becomes more chaotic. Eventually, it will collapse under its own weight." This was news to Jake, but he trusted Lisa's scientific judgment. The entity's voices grew angry. "That is impossible. We have perfected our system over millions of years, have you?" Lisa challenged. "Or have you just been lucky so far? What happens when you try to absorb a species that fights back? What happens when the network becomes too complex to control?" Tony signaled again. 2 minutes. The crystal formation began to pulse rapidly. Jake could feel the entity's consciousness pressing harder against his mind, trying to force its way in. "Enough questions," the voices said. "You will join us now, whether you agree or not." The colonists throughout the cavern began moving toward them. Their movements were jerky and unnatural, like puppets being controlled by an angry child. "Tony, now would be good," Ryan shouted, pulling out his weapon. 30 seconds, Tony called back. Jake felt the entity's power washing over him. His vision began to blur, and he could feel his thoughts becoming fuzzy. The alien consciousness was overwhelming his mind. But then he remembered something his grandfather had told him years ago. Sometimes the only way to win is to refuse to play by the other guy's rules. With his last moment of clear thought, Jake did something the entity didn't expect. Instead of fighting the mental invasion, he opened his mind completely and showed the alien collective something it had never experienced before. He showed it doubt, fear, the terrible possibility that it might be wrong about everything. He flooded the network with every uncertainty he had ever felt, every moment of confusion and self-questioning that made him human. The entity recoiled in shock. It had absorbed thousands of species, but they had all fought against the connection. None had ever deliberately shared their deepest fears and uncertainties. "What is this?" The voices cried out in confusion. "This is what makes us human," Jake said as Tony's charges exploded. The central crystal shattered in a blaze of light. The explosion sent shockwaves through the entire cavern, and one by one, the other crystals began to crack and fall down as the entity's network collapsed. Jake heard something he hadn't expected. Voices. Thousands of individual voices crying out as they were suddenly freed from the collective consciousness. The colonists throughout the cavern stumbled and fell as their connection was severed. For the first time into centuries, they were thinking their own thoughts again. But the victory came at a cost. The cavern was collapsing around them, and Jake knew they had only minutes to escape. "Everyone out, now," he shouted. They ran for the elevator as rocks fell around them. The building was shaking apart, and Jake could see cracks appearing in the walls. They barely made it to the surface before the ground opened up beneath the settlement. The entire colony sank into the earth as the crystal network destroyed itself. Hours later, standing beside their shuttle and watching rescue teams from their ship dig through the rubble, Jake filed his final report. "We found evidence of an alien entity that posed a significant threat to human expansion," he dictated. "The threat has been neutralized, but at the cost of 50,000 human lives. I recommend that the system be declared off-limits to all future exploration." Lisa appeared beside him. "Captain, the rescue teams found something. Some of the colonists survived. Their minds are free now, but they remember everything." Jake nodded. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was something. A few hundred people had been saved. and Earth was safe from the entity's influence. As they prepared to leave this system forever, Jake thought about what they had learned. Sometimes the greatest threats came disguised as gifts. Sometimes the only way to remain human was to reject perfection and embrace the beautiful chaos of individual choice. The entity had offered them paradise, but paradise without freedom was just another kind of prison, and humans, Jake knew, would always choose freedom, no matter what the cost.